Hello my soccer universe, for a quick review of all the midweek action, mostly cup action. We had a huge upset in Germany, we have a great El Clásico final in Spain, and the way there was not really straightforward as well, with an interesting Coupe de France final too. But we also had some league action there. We had a full Premier League round with some interesting results for sure, and we had makeup games in Portugal and the Netherlands, and that's where we actually will start. In the Netherlands, the cup final is long set between AZ and the go-ahead Eagles, and so we had some makeup games of two teams that used to play in Europe earlier this year. And AZ kind of continued their rough patch, only managing a 2-2 draw at home against Waalwijk, despite having a 1-0 lead. However, they have to come back, then Meerdink scoring the equalizer late on. Meanwhile, Feyenoord beat Groningen 4-1 and leapfrog Utrecht to land in the third spot, which is at the moment Champions League qualification. The game itself was never in doubt, Peshao getting a brace. Easily the biggest upset in this midweek came in the German Cup when third-tier Arminia Bielefeld beat Bayer Leverkusen 2-1 in the semifinal to qualify for the first DFB-Pokal final, and most remarkably, this was not a smash and grab. Leverkusen took a lead through tie, however it was immediately equalized by Wörl, and then just Bielefeld outsmarted Leverkusen and got the go-ahead goal just before the halftime break through Grosser. And in the second half, they just held tight defensively, and Leverkusen really didn't have an answer. Xabi Alonso's stock has taken a huge dip this season, and I have to say that this performance was an absolute disappointment. He was overthinking, Pep style. Meanwhile, Stuttgart also make it into the cup final, first time in a long time. Angelo Stiller already opening scoring against Leipzig in the 5th minute with a beautiful shot from outside of the box, and then they just kept Leipzig at bay and strike early in the second half through Woltemade, who has been in rare form, is such an unorthodox striker up front. He's tall, but he can dribble. Šeško pulls one back just a few minutes later to ignite the game again. You thought it is done, but Stuttgart were never to be denied, and leveling in the 73rd minute seals the deal. Another gut blow for Leipzig under the new coach Löw. In France, we have the expected Coupe de France final between two Ligue 1 teams, but in both cases it was not that straightforward. Dunkirk, a Ligue 2 team, took on PSG and had a 2-0 lead in the 27th minute. However, just before the halftime, Dembélé pulls one back, and then there was only one-way traffic. Marquinhos gets the equalizer in the 48th, Desiré Doué, and Dembélé again sealing the deal in another comeback win, although I'm starting to wonder, is this great PSG team now tailing off a little bit? And Stade Reims follow PSG into the final, beating Cannes 2-1 away from home. However, they conceded an equalizer in the 52nd minute, and then it's Teuma in the 58th that give Reims the winner, no Nakamura goal. And so it's a kind of old school versus new school final in France. We also got a verdict in France on the abandoned Montpellier Saint-Etienne clash. You know, the flares thrown from the Montpellier fans. The game has been awarded to Saint-Etienne, so Montpellier more or less down. There's a little bit of hope for Saint-Etienne now. In Spain, we got the first El Clásico Copa del Rey final in over a decade. I think the last one was the one where Bale came from the outside moving in Valencia. I think that one was played. However, this was not as straightforward. It was also odd that the scores kind of were flipped from the first leg, that the game that had many goals in the first leg had only a single one in the second, and vice versa. I knew, for instance, that Real Sociedad will go to the Bernabeu and battle them hard. This is a Real Madrid team that only won the tie because they have far superior players than Real Sociedad, and Imanol's time at Real Sociedad might come to an end, although he has lost so many great players. Again, Real Sociedad really battled hard. This was their season on the line, and they get the go-ahead goal to Barrenechea, leveling the scores on aggregate in the 16th minute and looking to have a little bit the upper hand. However, then Vini Jr. with a brilliant pass to Endrick in the 30th minute. Endrick runs clear on goal and lobs the goalie an absolute peach of a goal. And then the game was kind of meandering around. It was 1-1. You thought Real Madrid will not really exert themselves. Real Sociedad is not too strong enough. Well, that is until a cross-in is deflected by Alaba into his own net in the 72nd minute, and then everything broke loose. A little bit later, Take Kubo, who has been running wild at the Real Madrid defense, assists Oyarzabal, and his shot again deflected by Alaba in the 80th minute, 3-1, and now Real Real Sociedad are ahead in the tie. But as I said, Real Madrid have the better players, and Bellingham and Tchouaméni very quickly leveled the scores on aggregate. You think that Real Madrid escaped that scare until Oyarzabal again shows up in stoppage time to level the scores on aggregate at 4-4. To overtime it goes, La Sociedad only playing for penalties, Rüdiger heading it in for a rather messy win for Real Madrid. You don't get much confidence from that when you saw Real Madrid, and I think La Real are a moral victor in this one, but it's also undeniable that Real Madrid just have awesome players, even though they don't have a midfield that will move them on. Much was expected from the second semi-final, since we had a 4-4 in the first leg. This time around it was just Barcelona the first time, Lamine Yamal running wild and assisting Ferran Torres in the 27th minute to give Barça the deserved lead. There was almost nothing coming from Atletico, who really looked down and out. Then at halftime, Simeone brings on Sorloth and the like. Sorloth actually gets an equalizer after he already hit the outside of the net. However, he was in an offside position. Yes, it was much better by Atleti, but you would have wanted them to play already in the first half like that. And so in the end, Barcelona actually dug in, saw it out, and move on to the Copa del Rey final to meet their arch rivals. In Portugal, we saw in the midweek 2 makeup games. The first one saw Gil Vicente add more pain onto Boavista, who really seemed like they're going down. That team were Portuguese champions in the early 2000s. Meanwhile, Benfica beat Farense 3-2 at home. Aktürkoğlu scoring a brace and Pavlidis also getting in on the action, and now draw level with their city rival Sporting. So that race seems like it's going down to the wire, or up until the head-to-head at the José Alvalade. Sporting, meanwhile, played the first leg of their semi-final in the Portuguese Cup, beating Rio Ave 2-0 at home. Katamo and Gyökeres scoring already in the first half. A Katamo goal in the second half was disallowed for an offside position. It seems like Sporting will move on to that final. We were also treated to a full Premier League round in the midweek, and Arsenal kept their slim title hopes alive by beating Fulham at home 2-1, and on the return of Bukayo Saka, he actually gets the second goal, Miguel Marino opening the scoring. Very late on, Rodrigo Muniz pulls one back. Meanwhile, Wolves beat West Ham, who are really going nowhere under Graham Potter, 1-0 thanks to a Larson goal. And the tie between Forest and United was also settled early through none else than Elanga, who of course scored against his former club in the 5th minute. Forest keeping up their lofty position. It seemed like a little bit of a blues has beset Bournemouth, who lose at home to Ipswich 2-1, being 2-0 down already in the 60th minute. Only then Evan Nielsen pulls one back, Liam Delap scoring the winning goal for Ipswich. And it seems like ahead of the Champions League quarterfinal against PSG, Villa are hitting some form. They again win 3-0 away from home, and again it's in the second half that they turned on, and again it's Rashford who now scores his first Premier League goal for Villa. Then Asensio adds a second goal, and very late on also the third winter acquisition in Daniel Malen gets on the score sheet. Rather impressive stuff, keeps Villa alive in a race for a Champions League spot. Another remarkable goal scorer came in Manchester, where Jack Grealish scores in the second minute already against Leicester. Mamouche adds a second one against the very hapless Foxes. Was it a shot or was it a cross? In any case, Tonali's winner against Brentford was a real beauty of a goal coming in the 74th minute after Isak had opened the scoring just before the halftime and Mbeumo had equalized from the penalty spot. While survival for Southampton seems to be extremely unlikely, they at least had the goal of not becoming the worst ever Premier League team, and they were so close of achieving that. Onuachu giving them lead against Palace already in the 20th minute. However, Franca in the second minute of second half stoppage time gets the equalizer. However, it's still a single point that Southampton is away from achieving that minor goal. Meanwhile, Liverpool overall deservedly win the derby against Everton 1-0 at home. Diogo Jota scoring the goal in the 57th minute. It was always a question of when, not if, they will score that goal. However, the big talking point is of course the rough tackle of Tarkowski on McAllister, where he probably should have seen a red card. How this was only a yellow, it's a little bit beyond me, but that's English referees for you. And in the last game on Thursday, Chelsea beat Spurs 1-0 at home. Enzo Fernandez scoring the winning goal after a nice Cole Palmer assist in the 50th minute. Caicedo thought he had doubled it up, however he was in offside position. And then Sarr thought he got the equalizer, however there was a foul also in the build-up to that goal. So it ends 1-0, more pain on Spurs. And Chelsea reclaim 4th spot. Potentially they will end up in the Champions League. Well, that was it with my little review of all the midweek action. I think the biggest results came, of course, already on Tuesday with Bielefeld beating Leverkusen, and of course the great semi-final between Real Madrid and Real Sociedad that we have an El Clásico final. I think is a nice cap to the season. For now, we may see them again in the Champions League as well. In any case, this is your chance now to let me know how you thought these games were going, who will win these competitions. Drop a line below, give me a thumbs up if you enjoyed this video, subscribe to my channel if you want to see more videos like these. I will talk to you soon about more things in my soccer universe. Bye! Hey there, I really hope you enjoyed this video, and if you did, here are some videos and playlists that you may enjoy too. Also, please consider subscribing to my channel and hit the little bell icon so you get notified whenever something happens in my soccer universe. And with that, have a wonderful day. Bye!